Okay, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jen Laurie. If we haven't met before, I am a certified holistic nutrition practitioner and functional nutrition coach. And my expertise is in metabolic health. And so I noticed now, I'm going to just like full disclosure here, I am not a psychologist. I am not an expert of emotional eating. I am coming at you from the perspective of what I've learned and known in my educational experiences, my personal experience with overcoming the emotional eating and breaking those cycles of emotional eating. So I am really just bringing this to you as information that I've learned along my journey in hopes to give you some tools to help get you moving forward in your journey so you can start breaking that cycle of emotional eating in the same way. So really we just want to gain because it first starts with awareness and a deeper understanding. So we'll dive right in here. So what I'm going to be sharing today is the definition of emotional eating, contributors to the behavior, physical and emotional, building awareness as a first step to the change. I think we're all aware, but sometimes it's about becoming even more aware in the moment and how to become more aware to be able to have a tool that you can lean on that stops you before it gets to that place, right? So I'm going to give you some strategies, some tools, some resources. Really, mental and emotional health paves the way for better physical health and vice versa. When we work on our physical health, it can help with our mental, emotional health as well. So it kind of goes both ways, which is kind of neat, right? So, but everyone's on their own journey, and some people work on their physical health first, and it helps lead them to a better mental and emotional health. And some people need to work on their mental, emotional health before they can start working on the pathway of their physical health. So each person is individualized, and how each person tackles it is going to be their own journey. So here's some insights. So falling off the wagon and yo-yo dieting, has anyone been there their whole life? I feel like many of us have been there our whole life. And I will tell you in practice with over 100 clients, I will tell you that 99% of us has this struggle either currently or in the past. And isn't that something? So there's emotional root causes that often create the most havoc and are the trickiest to see. And it's very unique to each person and can be complicated. So this is just meant to be like a really light overview with some tools. There is resources that I can direct you to get even more in-depth maybe insight and training on what you can do. Again, I'm not the expert. I just know that I have been able to overcome a lot of the challenge that I've had, and I want to be able to pass that knowledge forward. So definitely falling off the wagon and yo-yo dieting does have a contributing factor to this, but there's often other things. So emotional hunger and its related behaviors are often tied to subconscious beliefs from difficult or uncomfortable life experiences of the past. So baggage, it's really the baggage we're carrying with us is what is shifted our perception into being this way. And oftentimes it's developed at a very young age. And for some people, it comes from a sense of worthlessness or not being enough. And so it's just something that we need to be aware of so that we can get help or work on for ourselves. So oftentimes we think it's a food problem, but it might not be really a food problem after all, right? There is a couple of things that can be related to food I will talk about at the end, but really what we're talking about through this part is really talking about that emotional side. So when food is eaten not for true hunger, or food is often eaten not for true hunger and often on autopilot. Would you agree with that statement? I think everybody, yeah, right? Yeah. Oftentimes we go on autopilot and we're not necessarily hungry. We're just kind of Sometimes, I mean, it's used to numb or distract or push down uncomfortable feelings. It could be feelings of loneliness, sadness, boredom, anger. It doesn't always have to be the negative feelings though. Like, oftentimes, it can come from even happy feelings, excited feelings. Like, it doesn't have to be a negative feeling, it can even come from a positive feeling. It's just like if you struggle with expressing your feelings, this could be it. This could be a piece of it. If you struggle with, like, maybe you just don't like, you get uncomfortable when you feel really, really deep feelings. I feel like for some people that are more empathic, they feel deeper and harder than others, and this sometimes can affect them even more because you feel it so hard, and sometimes we just don't have the tools of how to manage the feelings. Instead we're trying to, like, get away from them, right? Get away from them. And so sometimes it can happen when we're facing change or emotional stressors that can definitely food is that socially acceptable coping mechanism, right? Like we're not doing harsh drugs or doing you know what I mean? Like we're not doing crazy things to our body that would necessarily not be so acceptable socially. So this is kind of a socially acceptable coping mechanism that we learned from a young age when all we had access to was food, right? When we were younger. And even when you think about as a child, I remember reading this when my children were really young, that oftentimes what happens, like every time something happens, we're like, here, shh, 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 have this, have that, have the cookie, have the lollipop, have the thing, right? You're at the doctor's and they're getting some sort of procedure done or whatever. And it's like, here, have your candy after, right? Like we have kind of as a society, we've almost put that in place unintentionally, not really understanding that it could potentially contribute to a longer term psychological connection, right? So it is although that eating in the moment can be temporarily calming or soothing, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem or the feeling, right? So it often ends up creating a vicious cycle of guilt and shame that keeps the behavior going. Have you ever felt like you are spiraling down into a vortex that you can't seem to get yourself out of, and then you're like, "Who cares anyways?" You just, like, go grab more, right? Have you ever been there? Tell me I am not the only one. Because that's definitely a place that I've been in the past, and so, um definitely, we wanna be able to overcome that. So today I will share some information just about building awareness and some holistic suggestions for creating a shift. So we're gonna jump in here. So one of the things is asking yourself a question or teaching someone close to you that you can ask a question, like have a list of questions to be asked to you. So if you find yourself that you had a bad day and there was a lot of emotional eating that took place, how to stop it from carrying forward to the next day. One of the options could be is to have a person, if you're feeling down, have a person say, "Well, did you like if you were coming to me and you were saying, I'm feeling really down today. I don't know why. I'm like I can't even control it. I'm grabbing my comfort foods. I don't know what to do." You could come to me and I would ask you the questions like, "Well, did you eat well today?" "Well, no." Did you get exercise or move today? No. Did you drink enough water? No. Did you go outside? No. Did you talk to anyone? No. Did you limit your scrolling time? No. Did you make any plans? No. Did you get enough sleep? No. Oh, wait. Yes. Maybe you said yes to that one. Okay. So we can see patterns of why we're not feeling well. And then we can start tackling what we could maybe work on the next day to get the focus on making that improvement instead of worrying about why it like being stuck on the what happened and then be move into the why it happened. What can we do to get through it? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So is emotional eating a bad thing? No, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you good or bad. Like it's just a thing, right? And eating is one of those enjoyable things that humans can experience. However, one of the things that I talk about a lot in my coaching is are we seeking food for like to get rid of the emotion or seeking an emotional response, right? Because we can eat something and get a dopamine response, which is going to make us feel good temporarily. So if we're trying to move away from a negative feeling and move towards a good feeling, sometimes we will seek it from our food. So whether that's pleasure, distraction, um, whatever that might be, right? There's lots of different things that can lead us that way. But really, it's not a bad thing to enjoy food, to find pleasure in food, all of those things. But if you're seeking entertainment or pleasure from your food, that can be kind of it can kind of be a sign that you are maybe trying to distract yourself from something. So it's great to get pleasure and enjoyment from food, but we don't want to seek it from the food because food's purpose is to nourish our bodies, our souls, all of that, right? So um when we are so oftentimes someone might come to me and say, I'm bored with my food. Well, food is not there to entertain you. Food is there to nourish your body. Why are we seeking? So then we can ask ourselves the question of why are we seeking entertainment from our food? Is there something else that could entertain us so that we could focus on the nourishment of our food? Okay, so but I mean emotional eating comes on naturally for us because think about it all the time. We're growing up in throughout history, we've grown up celebrating every celebration is surrounded by food. Is there one celebration that we have that does not have food attached to it? I feel like the answer is no. Like very few things are not surrounded about food. If you're getting going out with friends, you're going out to a meal, right? If you're getting together with people, it's like a potluck event or a dinner event or whatever. If we're having a wedding, there's going to be food, right? There's food everywhere and um it's relatable for people, right? We celebrate it and it's natural for every human to want to escape any sort of suffering they might be experiencing emotionally. And to seek solace by eating something is just like a common byproduct of it. So, one of the things I was reading about was saying perhaps it should be called unrealized emotions eating instead of emotional eating. Because sometimes it's because we're trying to hide from our emotions and not feel our emotions. And so we're trying to like not realize or accept them to be what they are. So to stop reaching for food without hunger, we need to embrace the full spectrum of emotions, especially those that we resist most, which are those sadness type ones, sadness, anger, stuff like that, right? And willpower is not enough because it usually backfires, creates the frustration cycle. So trying to eliminate stress is highly unrealistic and can drive perfectionism. And that is an absolute impossible thing to strive for and will really set us up for not having success. So we want to learn how to have a better response and manage our responses to those emotions. And we're going to create new patterns, new thought patterns, new habits that can break down the barriers that have kept you from not cycling back to this. And I will tell you, it's a work in progress for the rest of your life. You do not wake up one day and it's like nothing affects you. Just so you know. Not in my experience. In my experience, it's becoming aware so that you can manage and use the tools to help you get through it. But you have to stay in that awareness to continue using the tools, because it's no matter what, it's locked into our subconscious, and we will have to create a new pattern for many, 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 many years. And if you are over 40, you've been having these patterns for a significant amount of time. And to reverse that overnight is not going to happen. It's going to take practice. So it's going to be kind of a practice, which could kind of be fun, really. You can make a game out of it. Your brain, you can trick your brain into thinking it's you trick your brain into thinking it's a game, and then you might have fun with it. So gaining awareness in the short term, one of the things that can work for some people is just pausing and taking a hunger reality check. So is my hunger physical or is it emotional? So asking yourself, like, take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I tired? Am I actually hungry? Or am I like, do I have digestive juices telling me, stirring up, telling me like I'm hungry? Have I not eaten in the past 5 hours, right? Like that sort of thing. But are you just bored? Are you, you know, needing to, or asking yourself if you are going through the emotions, right? Like, am I sad? Am I tired? Oh, or oh my gosh, am I sad? Am I lonely? Am I any of those feeling things, right? And then asking yourself, because sometimes we can go to food and think that we're hungry, but it's actually like we're tired. Maybe we're just tired and we're trying to keep ourselves awake because our blood sugars are going down, our body's going in rest mode, but our brain is saying, I want to stay awake, right? So we might reach for food in that moment too. So if you are bored, this is just one example. If you're bored, if the answer is bored, you can get moving, do something creative, find something, some sort of activity. You could even just journal and start creating new patterns. So if the answer is I'm bored, I will do this, right? So create a path for yourself. If the answer is I'm lonely, then I will reach out to a friend. If the answer is I'm angry, then maybe go take a bath. Right? Like, you see where I'm going with this? Or read, or turn on your favorite music and have a little private dance party. Whatever it is to get yourself in, like, either feeling a better emotion, but not with food, but finding a new habit to create. And you could journal that and really create new patterns of habits when you're feeling that way. That's one thing, is like, pause, take a breather, check yourself. Am I actually hungry, or am I feeling emotion? What emotion am I feeling? And what could I do to manage that feeling? Or sometimes you just have to sit in the emotion and breathe through it and talk yourself through it. Maybe it's like an overwhelm or anxiety kind of moment because you're just like got a lot going on and you're just like feeling the stress. Sometimes it's like pausing, breathing, telling yourself you're okay, you're safe, you're fine, breathe, and just like moving through the emotion without grabbing something. Drinking water. Drinking water helps, I find, in those moments as well. Like, guzzle water. Guzzle water. It will distract you. And if you're feeling sad, especially, because interestingly enough, when we're feeling sad, I'm not going to tell you this one, but did you know that if you don't want to cry and you're feeling like you're going to cry, if you drink water, you can't cry and drink water at the same time? It's actually impossible. I'm not telling you not to cry. I want you to feel your emotion if you need to feel your emotion, but sometimes there's times we need to like just choke it back a little, and water helps with that. But some people lean on food for that. they don't want to cry, so they'll reach for food. But water is actually like you cannot drink and cry at the same time. It's just like a weird science thing. Um, okay, long term. Long term, what we want to do is start addressing where is this coming from? How is this like part of my subconscious? And like, where did it come from? Because we weren't born with it. So what is the childhood programming? We form our opinions at a really young age. Our only mission really as a child is to fit in with the pack and survive. Like we don't have huge long-term thought processes when we're young, right? So we observe and we define what love is by watching our closest caregivers and how they show love to each other, our siblings, and to us. We might recreate that. We spend our whole lives recreating those patterns because we are creatures of habits and patterns. So what did your parents model? Was love unconditional? Was it unconditional? What needs didn't get met? And not to say that it is anyone's fault or anything like that. It's just is what it is. Just recognizing that maybe some of the needs you had as a child weren't met. And now we just need to acknowledge that. Um, was food used as reward or punishment growing up? That can kind of be a trigger too. Um, so yeah, so what you really want to do is what am I truly hungry for? Right? At the end of the day, we want to be completely aware of what we're actually hungry for. Are we hungry for a certain shift in our emotion? Are we hungry for food? Are we hungry for connection? What is it that we're actually wanting? So get really curious and be kind. Ask questions to yourself that challenge your belief and evoke discovery and insight. So a first great step to use curious questions in the deep and the dive down layer by layer of subconscious beliefs that drive your behavior. So here's some examples of powerful questions that you can ask yourself to really foster that self-inquiry and I recommend following these things. You can even screenshot this page here if you want. You can ask, these are great journaling questions just to kind of deep dive in and learn more about where you're at in the moment. So carrying a journal around for a while and just having, recognizing when you have these patterns and then writing those other things down, but then coming back to it and answering this, like, what do you believe about this situation that you want to change? Are the assumptions true? Sometimes we make assumptions from, things that have happened or prior beliefs. And though they're not necessarily a truth, they're just our belief. Are there other possibilities that could be possible for you? What would you need to change inside yourself to enable that shift or that belief? So, when we first started this, we talked about how oftentimes we use the words I am an emotional eater. So, shifting that language, that is something that will change if you shift that language to I'm experiencing an emotion that's making me want to eat is a totally different thought pattern that you're going to feed into your subconscious instead of taking claim to being a certain way. So what are the repeated thoughts you have about the issue? What do the inner voices say when you think about the emotional eating that you experience? And what do you believe makes you feel that way? Where do you think the beliefs came from? Were they indoctrinated or did you choose them consciously? Whether they're the beliefs about yourself or beliefs about a food or beliefs about a situation, and how is it impacting other areas of your life by having that belief? And what do you believe about other people in the world? And is it always true? What's underneath the belief and what's under that belief? And what would you rather believe instead? So this comes with a little bit of like belief repatterning here with changing your what you want to believe so that you can change some of those inner thought patterns. Okay, here is another little exercise that you can take away from tonight. An effective 3-step method to turn off the autopilot triggers. So some people say the pause and breathe doesn't work for them going through the questions. This is something that works for people that the pause just isn't enough for them. So it's a combination of a Japanese practice where each finger identifies an emotion and localizing the emotion, being mindful about the emotion. So it's kind of like a mindful based cognitive therapy. So yeah, we can get rid of worry fast with it is kind of so the first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger is kind of what we're looking at with the word fast. So it's like first finger is where your fear stands, middle finger stands for your anger, the ring finger sadness, and the pinky would be like your to-do list or your overwhelmed mind. Your thumb is your worry. Okay. So it's where am I feeling that? First of all, you got to name the emotion. What's the emotion that I'm feeling? Name the emotion, right? And then figure out what emotion it is. And so if there's worry, then you're going to like hold your thumb to your finger kind of thing. And think about like pause and think for yourself, like, where am I holding this worry? Like when I am stressed, I feel it in my shoulders tense up, I shrug up, I can feel it there. Some people hold tension in different parts of their body. So when you feel a certain emotion, maybe it's a sadness, maybe that sadness is like deep rooted in your chest or something, right? And so what you want to do is find it in the body, say it, and then with your natural breath, breathe into that part of the body and out from that part. So we're literally doing like a release of the emotion. So where am I feeling it in my body? Take a like close your eyes. Have your if you're sitting on a chair, it's even better because you can have your feet like grounded, have your feet grounded, or you can do it standing. But if you have it, I find sitting is like really good. You can put your feet grounded. So you don't want to like cross your legs or anything. You want to have your feet planted, grounded, and then close your eyes and take like the deepest breath, like big, deep belly breath in. But what you're doing is you're visualizing the air reaching to where that tension is or wherever that feeling is. And then you're going to let that breath out. And you're going to continuously do that until that feeling releases. Sometimes it can take just one breath. Sometimes it can take 5 breaths, right? And so taking that breath and then all of a sudden, like eating is like the last thing on your mind because you've dealt with the thing that was triggering you. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if I've still got you. I'm still, if you're still with me. Okay. So here's some suggestions to building some resilience and peace. Okay. So write everything down that you're worried about. Cross things out that you can't control, and then work on things you can. So let go of those things that are completely out of your control, and then begin to make a plan to work on the things that you can. Recognize that growth isn't linear. Celebrate the ups and learn from the downs. I love when we relapse and go backwards because we have the biggest growth, like learning growth jumps during those moments when we take the time to reflect, acknowledge, and understand what happened. Does that make sense? Because oftentimes we will regress into something that we thought we moved past, and then we beat ourselves up about it and spiral backwards. But instead, we could stop and say, what caused that? What can I do differently when I reach that moment again? How can I respond differently? The learning is actually in the downs. We don't learn in the ups. The ups are just celebration. The downs is where we learn and grow. So take a look at people that are barriers to your success, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And you might have to have some difficult conversations to create and state boundaries and hold them to it. Hold them to it. So kinder inner self-talk. Why is it that it's so easy to beat ourselves up? So always remember, I always keep this in my mind, like, would you speak to your daughter that way? Or your best friend, right? When we're speaking to ourselves, we want to speak to them as if like you are talking to your very best friend. Having time in nature is really helpful. Not when it's minus 22 like it is here. um, Choosing an attitude of gratitude. I like to wake up every morning, and before I even open my eyes, I think about what I'm grateful for. It's just a practice that I've done so much that I literally do it without even consciously thinking of it. I find my brain wandering to that before I even consciously start directing it. So turning it into that habit. Affirmations, you can use Post-it notes everywhere. Post-it notes are fun. So keeping yourself in that positive. Connection is huge, right? Because oftentimes those lonely feelings, the boredom feelings, the sadness feelings can be helped with connection, being connected, being creative, fun, music, laughter, friendship, music, dance, and movement. It can all really help to build the resilience and peace within yourself. Okay. I'm going to just stop share for a minute and just talk a little bit about some of the other things that have helped me, because oftentimes when we're working on creating better nutrition paths for ourselves, sometimes that can trigger us and we fall back into the emotional eating. And that could be what I experienced is a long time ago, I recognized that if I use the word can't, like I can't have that, my little inner child wants to scream, stomp, have a big temper tantrum, and say, oh, yeah, try and stop me. Like for real, try and stop me. So I stopped using the word can't and I started using the word I choose not to or I don't. And it felt so different. It didn't feel restrictive. It felt like I was in full control and no one was controlling me. And that was better for me because I don't like being controlled. So, watching your language around when you are making shifts in your nutrition is very powerful, because that can't word, I don't know, like, am I the only one that can't is like a total trigger word? When someone says can't, I think I twitch. I'm like, what?
Oh yeah. I'm the same as you, Jen.
Yeah.
Watch
Yeah.
me.
Watch me, right? So it's it's very triggering for me, and then I want to like rebel. So that's one thing that really helped me, and then just really acknowledging what I was feeling was like the most helpful for me. It's just like, and really having goals. Having goals for yourself and sticking to it, right? Sticking to the commitment to yourself as if you were committing to another human being, because for some reason commitments to ourselves seem harder than committing to others, right? Now with my journey, so I really have been struggling with this. I had been struggling with it my whole life, and what finally really helped me leaps and bounds was getting my blood sugars under control through my metabolic balance nutrition program. That is really what really allowed me to do the pause, actually, because the pause felt really hard before, but it allowed me to be able to do the pause when I wasn't fighting against the chemical reactions in my body. So that is when I was able to actually really make that shift. And so working on those patterns, and really for me, it's acknowledging that you need to increase your protein, eating 3 meals a day, not snacking was really helpful because I no longer had food that I was like, I got in a pattern of just eating 3 times a day instead of grazing all day, which helped my blood sugar stabilize, but it also helped me from having a pattern of eating all day long. And instead, I had set meal times so I could make more conscious decisions. Oh, I could make more conscious decisions about what I was eating because I was like planning my 3 meals a day. That makes sense? Okay. And so having those 3 meals a day was really helpful. And then having my blood sugars balanced and being able to have a meal plan that was specific for my body was really helpful. So I just wanted to go through just a few of I know some of you already have a metabolic balance plan and are working through it in your own time as well. But one of the reasons why metabolic balance helps and meal timing helps is because it gets people away from choosing foods based on health washing occurring in the media on food packaging. So with our program, it goes right back to the core foods from the grocery store. Like we're talking the outer edge, nothing with packages. And that makes such a big difference because oftentimes we go into the grocery store, we're on a mission to create health for ourselves, and we see all this health washing occurring on the packaging, trying to convince us that the food is healthy. And I'm here to tell you if it comes in a box, it's not going to be healthy. If it comes in you know what I mean? Like if it's in a section with processed food is processed food. You can't make processed food healthy. There are better options when it comes to processed food, but processed food will never be healthy. That's the reality because it's low in nutrients because the processing takes that out. And the reality is they spend a lot more money on the packaging. The manufacturers spend more money on the packaging than the actual ingredients in the food. Is that not crazy? Like the marketing that they're paying for, the packaging that they're paying more for that than the actual food in the container. Think about that when you purchase processed food. So the bottom line is to sell more products with low production costs and to have a long shelf storage time. So look how many times food and beverages are displayed as having emotional uplifts and benefits. Think about like chocolate bar commercials. I think of like, what is it? The Eat More. Remember the Eat More commercials? Do you guys remember that? Yeah. So anyways, I remember so I suggest don't watch commercials. Commercials are going to try and convince you, and don't look at billboards when you're driving either. Stick to the road. So there is going to be all kinds of temptations out there, but know that if you stick to whole foods, eating 3 meals a day, you're going to feel better, but you're also not going to be on the blood sugar crash, which contributes to emotional eating. Okay. Eating natural foods that can't compete with sledgehammer flavors and sweetness. I mean, it's actually a blessing because it's an opportunity for those cravings to disappear. But when we do go and eat those things when we haven't been for a while, we can now explore it and now have awareness and take steps to change it for the future. So natural foods are always going to be more nutrient dense, and the body is going to appreciate that from you. Okay, the gut microbiome is also going to be given more opportunity to be balanced. There's a huge connection between food, mood, and behavior. So we want to normalize the blood sugar and insulin cycle in the body because it's very powerful, and it's also going to help improve your sleep cycles and also help give you an opportunity for your hormones to get balanced. So cortisol no longer needs to be elevated and in attempt to replenish the body's stress depletion energy stores. So that is going to lower your stress, that alone, when you get your cortisol levels down because you're not having such high stress hormones, because you're not having so much stress hormones going through your body. When you are feeling an emotion, it might not hit you so hard. Does that make sense? I think I said that right. So also, just so you know, if you are having hormonal imbalances caused by blood sugar imbalances, a higher estrogen increases the feelings of agitation and anger. So if you're feeling kind of irritable, it can be because of this hormonal imbalance that can happen. So the desire to stuff feelings down and regret from outbursts can cause this extra estrogen in your body as well. So, um, uh, yeah. So anyways, that is all I wanted to share. I'm going to open up for questions. And if you are curious about my metabolic balance program, just let me know and I can send you a video that explains it in great detail.